Let me ask you one more question then on the paper. Investment wise, human capital or technology automation?
One or the other, you have to choose.
That's the thing.
Can't sit on the fence here either. What's Fabian writing? How many letters are there in automation?
That's it.
You're on mute.
Oh, sorry, I had to. Yeah, somebody's banging, and I don't know if it's my son, but it sounds like they're hitting a hole in the wall. So, okay, 3, 2, 1. Whoa!
Wow.
I did not expect that, Derek.
Wow.
Rubbish in, rubbish out. I can put the best RMS system or data system in my hotel, but if someone's feeding it the incorrect information, it doesn't really help me. So unfortunately, AI technology hasn't evolved enough yet to take over a human functionality and thought process. But we know that if the reservationist puts in the wrong details or the wrong segmentation or the front office doesn't do something, that impacts our data from top to bottom. So I believe technology and human go hand in hand because rubbish in, rubbish out. You see, there you go. We only have to one. Yeah?
You remember the now Les, that is now back to your younger days. Do you remember the $8 billion man?
Yes.
Yeah, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
The rest of you might be too young for that. No, Rob, you must have watched it, yeah?
Never heard of it. What was it? $8 billion man?
Yeah, you can't remember. Was it the $8 billion man or something?
$6
When you
million.
saw, huh?
$6 million man.
Oh, $6 million man. And you just heard this weird song in the background every time he used his bionic arm.
Yeah.
Daniel, you said tech, right? And Les, you said human. No.
Yes.
And Rob, you said tech.
Tech, absolutely.
Why tech?
It goes back to, do you know, you remember the project that I did with a group of 30 hotels. It was about 2015, and we wanted to do full automation, and I went to ITB, and within 6 weeks going to ITB, we'd rolled out a whole hotel with a new tech stack, full service hotel, conferencing, weddings, the whole lot, restaurant, gym, full, 4,000 members at the gym at every hotel. So a serious operation. And on that project, I remember at the start, everyone said to us, one, the market's not ready for this, and two, you'd be mad to do this, takes the personalization out of hospitality. And at the end of the project, we had greater TripAdvisor scores than ever. We had better customer engagement than ever because we didn't lay off any of the reception team. They just became hosts. So they're at the front door welcoming and greeting, and all the payment side of thing was taken away and automated. We completely changed the operation. Regular guests could use their mobile phone to check in or their Apple Watches. There was no smoke and mirrors. It was entirely automated. There was nothing, a lot of these models that you see now are still, it's background work. People are doing it in the background. The guest thinks it's automated, but it's not. It's fully automated. That's 2015. And if you went to anyone a year later in Village and you said, hey, we're going to take all this out, when we said we're going to put it in, they said, we're mad. And then a year later, if we said it to everyone, we're going to take it out, they'd say, you're mad. And all it was mindset. It was nothing more than mindset. It was the same people, it was the same hotel, same guests. It was getting in and doing it. And it saved so much money. It was a £6 million investment, and it was a £3 million EBITDA return, improvement on EBITDA every year, in pure cost. So you think about the revenue that comes on the top of being number one on TripAdvisor, all that sort of thing as well. But that's a huge return. That's 30 million EBITDA on a 30 million value return on a 10 times multiplier. You take that any day of the week. So I look at it now, and what's changed is the technology's been there for years. It's been there for years. It's been available. The adoption hasn't. And I think what COVID-19 will do is will drive the adoption, because I think everyone now wants that technology, whereas 12 months ago, everyone was saying, oh, it doesn't belong in hospitality. I think that's why automation will be the winner out of this.
In which part?
Well,
Oh, sorry, Derek, go ahead.
just to add on to what you're saying about automation and tech, I think it's very country specific, because first world countries can adopt tech much quicker than third world countries, as an example. If we're looking at labor costs in New Zealand, Australia, other parts of Europe, it could be exceptionally high. Hearing that Iceland's labor cost is one of the highest in the world, that's new to me. So that's another example of it being high. Africa, we don't have very high labor costs. We don't have part-time labor, it's all full-time labor and quite minimal cost. So sometimes I can hire 6 staff members instead of putting a system in. And that's also a catch-22 situation we need to remember, purely because the saving that tech will bring in our market is not going to be like massive. But the ability to generate higher gross revenues through tech usage can benefit our country, because our country is not very good in terms of technology adoption as of yet. Also, like for example, our data Wi-Fi infrastructure is not really solid. So that also will hinder a technology process. There was actually a hotel in Johannesburg, which is now an Onimo, it got converted over. They built their whole model on a tech-generated process. Check in, all these things. Even built one reception desk, because they were like, we don't need people, we need 7 self-check-ins and 1 person. Well, their self-check-in 3 years later still not working. And it resulted in the fact that customers were actually queuing outside the front door to check in on the front desk. So,
And is that a technical thing not working, or is it it's just no one wants to use it?
no one wants to use it, number one, because they didn't do the research. The infrastructure they put in, they thought putting a 20 meg fiber line is going to run the property, which they didn't actually do any of the research there. So the idea of tech I find brilliant, but I think the implementation is important. And the implementation is done by people and human capital. We know we get the wrong person installing the tech, everything is going to be wrong. And they'll think it's right because it's just the way it's been done. So it starts off with finding the right person to roll out your tech and then moving over from people to automation. But we know there's still people sitting in the background doing certain things, doing the reporting, looking at strategies, having board meetings, etc. To eliminate people as a whole anywhere around the world in hospitality, I don't think it's going to ever happen. It becomes quite difficult because it's people, it's hospitality, it's a service-driven industry. But the usage of tech by the right people, in my opinion, will make the industry fly. And also in Africa, what we've noticed was that we have a minimum of a 25-year age gap between the current leaders and the future leaders. So the current leaders who are GMs are 40, 50, 60-year-old GMs. They will purely not adopt tech because they don't understand it. And their answer is the final answer. So if you say, I want to bring in, say, for example, Ivy, which Fabian created, they won't understand it. They'll see the numbers and they'll just say no value and shut you down. And I've seen decisions like that for groups of 100+ hotels where the CEO never understood it, so he shut down the whole idea. And that's nothing to do with the implementation of tech. That's people, human capital. We need to make sure that the human capital in our industry right now understands the tech, first of all, so we can roll it out successfully. If they don't understand the data or the tech, it doesn't add any value, it adds expense. And then that's the debate we sit with everyday basis in Africa, is that, well, the tech doesn't show me what I need to. We're like, yeah, but you've grown occupancy, you've grown revenue, you've grown rate. They don't know how to read the data. So automatically the assumption is it adds no value. It's an expense line to me.
But what about, let me jump in here, Derek, because I remember I had a conversation with Les and I said something along the lines of, what advice would you give young graduates, right? And Les was like, well, first of all, we need more graduates. Now, you are actively involved in pushing content through universities, right? Or lecturers, right?
Correct. So we've got 2 revenue and commercial management degrees actually certified already in 2 different universities. One is the Stenden University, which is the Dutch-based university out of Leeuwarden in Holland. So what this is it's a 10-week revenue management minor that bolts onto a BCom hospitality degree. So that's a 10-week crash course in revenue management on the basis that you understand hospitality management. But you can only do this 2 years into your 4-year degree. The second degree that we have is a 1-year advanced diploma in revenue management at the University of Johannesburg. And that's also fully content created by us, curriculum created by us, and managed by us. So right now, my goal is basically to get as much young talent into the industry, which didn't exist 10 years ago.
But how do you hold them, right? Because if I looked at them, my guys that I went to college with, 70% dropped off in the first year, right?
Correct. 27% of the graduates in the last 5 years out of both universities are in the industry at the moment, which is actually not a lot. So 2 out of 10 are left in hotels. That's quite scary. So revenue management is new. There is call it maybe 10, 15 years old in our industry. So for the young guys coming through, it's the realization that I don't have to start in the kitchen to work in hotels and work my way through. With the middleman companies coming in or the outsourced specialists coming in, that creates a whole new field for future leaders. Going into revenue management directly before working through kitchen front desk reservations can fast track an approach. Studying statistics or online can fast track a revenue approach. It might not help operationally in the property, but you have to retain them by finding their passions and milking their passions. So all my staff actually came through the revenue degree, came through internships, came through mentorships, and it's their passion. And if you can get people passion driven instead of money driven, you'll keep them. But a lot of people chase money, especially in our industry.
I had an interesting debate with Michael Hayward. Rob, you might know him out of the UK, and he also teaches a master's in hospitality management in Lyon, I believe. And he said something interesting. They sat with all those big chains, Hilton, Marriott, IHG, whoever was there. And he said, the real thing is you all tell us that you want this young talent, right? And you all tell us, we really need to get those young people in. And yet every time they have an interview, you don't take them because they don't have experience, right? So how do you want somebody who comes out of uni and you want that young person, but then you burden them with 10 years of experience? That could be debatable. I mean, let me ask you. When I went through a management trainee, it was like 3 months every time, right? And then afterwards, the typical thing was 2 years in a job, between 18 months and 2 years, move to the next one. 18 months to 2 years, move to the next one. Do we still need 2 years? Because when I was younger, I was like, oh my God, after 6 months, I'm getting it. Let me move on, right? And people were like, no, you got to get your badge. You got to hang out for another 12 months, dude. And then you can move on. And I know that back then it frustrated me, right? Because the people who want to be in that job for 5-10 years will be in that job for 5-10 years. But those young people that want to move on, do we have the right frameworks in place to actually allow that from an industry perspective? And Rob, chip in as well, considering.
I would say that those management trainee things, that's something I don't believe in. Inevitably, what happens is you take a really talented young person, you sign them up to a 2-year agreement. It's an excuse to pay them cheaply. Yeah. We'll start and say, I'm giving you a career opportunity. So rather than on 50 grand, I'm going to pay you 35 and you should be grateful. And you're going to get all this wonderful experience in work and housekeeping and restaurant and all those sorts of things. And they end up doing simple tasks like washing dishes and polishing cutlery. They very rarely learn anything. And they get pulled around from pillar to post. They get transferred from different locations. They tend to get flogged, and you're right. So we work out all the enthusiasm out of them. So we don't have them. I abandon them. We just don't do them. What we do is that if we have a couple of management programs, but they're genuinely highly paid. They're more highly paid than average salaries, and they're deployed to help us out with special projects. And they get to work alongside me. They get access to the executive team, and they're genuinely fast track. So we make a promise of a role prior to signing them up, because you're right, Fabian. You end up just getting you do demeaning work, you lose the will to live, and then you end up heading off and working for a bank.
Yeah,
it's terrible.
But that's our responsibility, Liz. It's not the student's responsibility. We need to make sure that when we take interns in, that it's worth their while, that we don't send them from pillar to post to housekeeping to kitchen. So we need to make sure, once again, engage with the universities, because they're the ones that approach us, not the students. And unfortunately, students can't graduate without an operational internship. That's just the reality of it.
I agree, Derek. I think they should be the responsibility of the CEO. I think they should all report to the CEO, and with a dotted line, and there should be conversations every quarter with those people, because you're right, it becomes your responsibility. What we do is, we have a young leaders forum, so once a year we get all our young leaders, and often they're those people who are the most talented, and we get them in a room for a couple of days, and my owner and myself sit down with them for an hour or two and ask for their feedback about life, about what they want out of their jobs, what their criticisms are, and they're the most valuable things we get.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Because what we've done with the revenue miners now and the revenue interns who are coming through, very hot topic, very difficult to find talent, especially in revenue, online, e-commerce, social media, etc. We've developed a mentorship program where we start engaging with the students in year 2 already, in terms of classes and things like that. Then we whittle down the talent to say, okay, you want to be operations, you're great at operations, off you go. You want to be social media or marketing, come this way. Revenue, go that way. So we instill, before they even graduate, through going to do lectures, online calls, all kinds of little things like that with potential students, we guide them before they know where they want to go. So that's also a way, so when they do enter our organization, they know they want to be here for revenue, operations, chefing, marketing. It's not like you walk in and I'm here for an operational internship, let me do everything. I mean, I did the old school one, 3 months in every department, which benefited me now, but I think the millennial has changed their mind. They don't want to work very hard, they want to work very little to make very lot of money. And that also puts the risk of our whole industry, because if no one wants to do the grunt work anymore, how long are we going to survive? We still need people to wash the dishes. You can't outsource that fully. You still need those kind of things and those kind of things. But if the mindset comes in, I'm a graduate from a university, I'm a manager now, that is also a risk to the industry, because yes, you can't teach us much. We've been doing this every day. However, we can teach you to do it and be the best. But as you said, it has to be the organization's responsibility to grow that talent, nurture the talent. If we don't take...
Well, yes and no, it's both, right? It's
correct.
Like my philosophy was always, if you want to know something, Google it and then spend 2 days immersing yourself in it, right? And that's...
Why does that not surprise me? Why does that not surprise me, Fabian?
Thank you. Yeah, no, I couldn't sit in classroom. But so when we have new staff members, what we do with them is we're going to give them an immersion call, right? And all they got to do is they literally get 1 sentence or a word a day, and then they have to literally Google the living hell out of that word until they fully understand the entire subject and put together a 1-pager that you can put to anybody and they can read it and they can understand it, right? So from a 2-way communication. And sometimes you'll be surprised, things that come out are very unexpected, because you sit there and go like, how could you misunderstand the subject so much?
I think Fabian too, it's important, everyone's different, of course, because we're all individuals,
yeah.
But it's important to find out what an individual's motivation is. Because what we're in danger of doing is saying, well, we're going to put you on a career path. But that actually mightn't be their motivation. When I was a young man, I wanted the GM's suit. I wanted his car. I wanted his secretary. I mean, one of those, and I got them all. So one of them's cost me a lot of money. I won't say which one. But that's the type of motivation you've got to be honest with young people and say, well, what do you want? Do you want my job? Do you want my money? And well, what is it for you? Because at that point, you can determine your path. They might say, well, actually, I do. Well, great. Let me show you how you do.
Aren't they going to change their career like 10 times over?
Exactly. So that's why putting them into a career is not always the best. The career path is not the best thing. It's about finding out what their ultimate goal is. And then you mentoring them as we have a responsibility as older people to mentor them to be good people. So for me personally, the greatest outcome for someone is that if I meet them in the street in 10 years' time and we can share a word and they say, I once worked for you, I really respect you, that's the best outcome.
So you're okay for them to moving on, yeah? Because that would be my next question. A lot of smaller businesses have the hard time that they're putting in the energy, and then after 2 years they say, okay, now I'm going to Best Western.
Yeah, no, my measure of your success should be aiding them to grow as people. And look, I actively encourage any of the young people coming through our organisation to take their OEs. I know that's kind of a Kiwi and a South African Aussie thing to do. That's something we do as young people. We do with the OEs. So I actively encourage them to do that. I know I'm going to lose them, but they may come back, they may not. The important thing is to grow better people.
Great.
What about you, Daniel?
Daniel, I'm interested to hear. I think I did a year in housekeeping, a year of nights, 2 years of nights, and I kind of look back, and at the time I hated it, right? But I look back on it now, and I think it grounds me, and it sort of gave me a foundation that at the time I didn't realise I needed. So, Daniel, I'm interested to hear what your thoughts are. And from you mentioned a family business. Do you think there's value in working from the ground up, doing your time, so to speak?
Yes, certainly. Of course, I've been cleaning rooms this week along with my family, because after COVID, it's pretty much just the core team, and we've been blissfully a little more busy than we expected. And what I've been thinking is, why didn't I do this sooner? Because going and cleaning, just for example, doing the housekeeping, you see lots of things that could been done much more practically. So I was looking at things that are, you get a better understanding of what you're doing, and I thought to myself, I've been fine-tuning perhaps some things behind the computer where here are things that could have been done much better with a bigger return of investment, making the situation for the housekeeping more suitable, having them for an example, if the cabinets and the things aren't truly organized so that people can go on about their business straight away, but at the same time I'm on the other end using tech to measure how fast they clean rooms and the reviews we're getting for housekeeping when the situation isn't good enough. So yeah, we've been fixing that. So surely you can get out of touch by sitting in front of a computer all day and not knowing what's going on under the hood. So definitely I truly agree. But I'd like to comment, it's a really interesting thing hearing how different it is, the situation here in the Nordics than down in Africa. It's amazing. We're on completely the other end of the line, having labor being available, so for us, investing in a kiosk and having the availability for guests to check in by themselves, even for a house of, let's say, 20 hotel rooms, the investment of a kiosk and a whole new access control system for 20 rooms you can get it back in probably about 2 months, 3 months at most. So it's a really interesting aspect to hear how that's.
So how come we don't have that everywhere?
The kiosk.
Why aren't there kiosks in every single hotel? Because I know we have been talking kiosks and self check-in for donkey years, right? And I had I think I talked to Rob about it. My experience was that I got an email saying, "Would you like to check in online?" I did that. Only because of legislation, I still had to wait an hour and a half in line in New York because I needed to show my passport in order to get the key. And I was like, where's the point? Like, I'm a returning customer. I know your checking is horrific and I always have to wait an hour and a half, right? Because you have 1,000 bedrooms, you're in the middle of New York, right? So I was super happy when I all of a sudden got that thing that said online check-in. Oh, you're 100% checked in. Please come to the front desk to pick up your key. And you kind of go like, okay, can I get my key at the concierge? No, you cannot. Why not? We need to scan your passport. We need to do this. We need to do that. We need to do this. So is that not the biggest problem? That it's actually hotels might want to adopt this kind of stuff, but the governments are just saying like, yeah, sorry, we'll come around to that one we can.
But isn't this kind of a hot topic for PMSs and software companies right now, making good solutions to this? I heard recently that there indeed the law in Greece is changing, that a company must have a self-service check-in available. No, a hotel must have a self-service check-in available by law. But do fact check that. But I heard it recently. It sounded really cool. But another thing also on that, there are ways. For example, we went instead of an RFID card being programmed in the reception, we went with a way of sending people emails with self-service check-ins, like online check-in, similar to the when you go on a flight, and we installed PIN number access locks to the room doors. I saw that in Urban House in Copenhagen. It looked really cool to me. So we were actually able to take care of the nitty-gritty things by email, online, and then people can come directly and walk directly into the room, type in their PIN, and access the room.
So you should be able to use things like DocuSign for your check-in, and I'm out of operations, right? So that might not exist. But I know from there was one startup that I met in Australia. They essentially, when you arrive in the destination, they pick up that you're within the vicinity of the hotel, and you got to do a selfie, and that selfie get imaged, analyzed with your passport, and therefore check-in has been completed, right? So that's quite cool. But aren't we opening Pandora's box with all of that? That you truly don't need talent anymore?
It's a double-edged sword. If you're looking at tech from a hotel point of view, we can put as much technology that we want in. From a consumer adoption point of view, that's what we need to look at. So we did a test project in the Singapore hotel, which is actually the Grand Park City Hall Hotel in Singapore. You'll know where that is, Fabian.
Yeah.
Where we put a fully automated tech system in, where you arrive at the airport, you take a selfie on your phone, it sends you your key card, it opens the door, your cell phone controls the curtains, the lights, the TV, the aircon, it controls everything. Anyone in the older age bracket, when I'm saying 45 plus, we saw a very bad adoption ratio from them. They still want to scan the key. They still want to go get the key at front desk. So the millennials loved the new tech and the ability to do everything online and on your phone. The older people didn't like it. So when looking at guest review scores, we actually had a mixed bag of guest review scores. Some people were saying, I really love the technology and I don't have to engage with people. Some people go, I feel completely lost and I want to go switch my light on. I don't want to do it in an app or download something or log into something.
Yeah, but so, come on, let's be honest, right? Why the hell would I take my phone to switch on a light? For me, that's
it doesn't make sense. It's tech for tech's sake, isn't it?
That's the whole thing. I went to a hotel in Hong Kong, and it took us 45 minutes to figure out how to switch off a light. You know that one light in the room that you have no idea where the switch is? And I was sitting there, and I called downstairs, and they were like, no, it's easy, tech control. And I said, but I'm a techie, and I don't get it. And it's exactly what you said, Rob, right? It is tech for the sake of, like, you're getting your favorite music and your favorite mood and stuff like that. You know what? Most of the time when I go in my hotel room, I'm not in the mood, right?
If you won't be able to understand the tech we're going to use. A lot of people implement without understanding the customers.
What the customers want.
We faced this at Village because we had no reception. We took it out. But the way we got around it and was that we didn't lose any receptionists. We lost a lot of back of house roles, but we didn't lose any receptionists. So they stood out and they were hosts. And Village's average age was 45 plus, and the gyms are the same, 45 plus. But it was really simple. A good host, and we trained the host on this. A good host will know who's not going to be able to use the kiosk and who hasn't used their phone. Those who use their phones, the corporates, go straight in, straight to the lift. They don't even go to the check-in station. But you see them as they're coming in, and typically it's more leisure, weekend. And a good host will be on that and just do the kiosk check-in for them. Because you're not trying to cut your labour at reception and cut your human interaction. What you're trying to cut is the oodles of back office work of reservation checks and, you know, bill backs and manually charging credit cards and all that sort of thing. That's the that's where the labor saving is. And actually, you know, the labor saving is only part of it. It's probably about half of it. So I think if it's managed properly, you can get around that.
So there's just repositioning of your current staff to do something else. So you don't really eliminate the people aspect completely. You might save on 1 or 2 admin roles, but it's just repurposing what you've got to be a host, a receptionist, etc., etc. So we're not really going to see mass human resource saving or human capital saving as a result of tech. Front of house, but back of house may be minimal.
Now, have you guys been to McDonald's recently?
No, they're closed in Singapore.
Yeah.
But before COVID-19, it's I love the example of the kiosks and how things are going for McDonald's after implementing the kiosk. It's a really consumer-friendly kiosk that they have, and they've indeed seen some amazing pickup in upselling and all sorts of, when you go there, you can look at the meal you want to have, look at the calories, look at what's in it. Like this sauce goes really well with it. So it's also like standardization of service. It's always the same excellent service, nicely packaged and easy to understand, beautifully done. So it's also, of course, the implementation of course it's insane to go too far, with lights and things like that. But in my opinion, McDonald's is an excellent example of how things are done nicely.
At Village, it's worth pointing out 600,000 of the £600,000 upside we had in across 30 hotels was no-show revenue, because what we were there was huge upsell revenue as well. What we were relying on was the receptionist to charge that no-show, and we were relying on them, fulfilling that and doing it. And the human nature was it just wasn't happening. We thought it was, but reality was it wasn't. And consistent upselling was another one. The upselling that we did at front desk through the kiosk and through the mobile phone far outweighed anything we were ever doing before because it just wasn't consistent. As soon as they were busy and they had a lineup of 3 or 4 people, upselling was out the window. So it's interesting that you say that, because there were huge efficiencies just from being consistent in the process.
Yeah, but sometimes we ask contradictory stuff, right? We're saying do an upsell, but do a check-in in under 20 seconds, right? And you kind of go like, and how am I supposed to upsell at this point in time, right? So is it the McDonald's one is very interesting because they saw productivity gains. And I remember the very first time. So my sister runs a McDonald's in Germany, and I called her and I was like, dude, this is awesome. They have these things here and you just press those buttons, right? And then it's like in a canteen. So you don't actually go there anymore. You have to pick up your tray, right? And she was like, yeah, those things are being rolled out constantly, and that drives productivity. So there's always a reason of optimization behind it. But I don't understand why hotels have not adopted menus that are digital, right? You see now in supermarkets that they're starting to implement the price tags. And based on which aisle and what time of the day, the price for your bread will go up or down, right? So why aren't we doing that in every single restaurant? Because all you got to do is in the back end, match a picture with a couple of items, put a story around it, change it around by saying like, okay, single guy, offer the beer, not the bottle of wine, right? Because bottle of wine might be a bit too much. Couple, offer that with a little bit of this. Or am I barking up the wrong tree here?
No, Fabian, you are preaching to me, because I've been thinking about how can we implement dynamic pricing into restaurants. So we did a little case study on Marina Bay Sands, which is the bar on top. And if I sit at this table with a view, or I sit in the corner, why can't we give them different menus?
Correct.
Why can't we charge more for the view, for example? If you give them an iPad, as an example, and you say, on table 37, the shitty table in the corner, that has got no view or anything. On that iPad, there's a 2-for-1 special. While the one with the view hasn't got the 2-for-1 special. Then you take it further, time of day, as you said. What are you trying to do? Stock control, releasing. For me, that's the future of restaurants. And I want that to be the future of restaurants. We've been working on this for like 2 years already. But how often do you ask the person sitting next to you, how much was your beer? You don't.
Yeah, and how much does people come back, right? And you can even, I mean, let's jump in here because you have restaurants?
Yes, we do. And look, I'm finding the whole discussion fascinating because, I mean, I love the iPad live menu thing, especially because, I mean, I'm getting deep here, but Derek, you know, ingredients, the cost of ingredients changes every day.
Correct.
If you're buying, you know, tomatoes, for instance, and the supply, the price changes every day. And as you know, these days, when you enter an invoice from a supplier into your menu coster, it changes that. But of course, you can't change the menu physically because you probably only reprint that once every 6 months. So, you know, you can potentially have a tomato soup, for instance, that you're losing money on. So I like that idea.
And the menu engineering, right? You can push one to the top.
Absolutely. You're onto something there. In fact, we're about to open a couple of restaurants. So tomorrow, I will say that I've come up with this brilliant idea. So thanks.
I might call Derek afterwards. There might be a business opportunity here. Les, if you want to be the
well, I think I find the discussion interesting because in New Zealand, the technology has not quite been there around these things. Maybe in Australia, Rob, from your experience previously, it may have been, but in New Zealand, we were still a little bit behind. Where our company has come to a halt, and it's, you know, it's partly my fault, is that every time we look at a service like an app or keyless entry or any sort of technology, no sooner have we decided on something, and then one of my team will come along saying, oh, company X has now got this thing and it does all these other things. So we keep on losing sight of what we want to do. Because I agree, I think good technology is seamless. And I guess really shouldn't know the difference between a personal touch or technology working quietly away. You shouldn't sense that. And we've got some basic technology in place, and we're really happy with it. You know, we've Amazon Alexas through all our rooms. We use iPad check-ins, and you know, we're doing the simple things. But we haven't gone to the next stage with that keyless entry just yet, because every time we make a decision, another product comes along, and you know, which is the danger, isn't it? Around technology, it's always changing, so you'll never make a decision. So I think the whole conversation for me has been really interesting, gentlemen. I've learned a lot because it's sort of given me the confidence now to push ahead. And I agree with the comments that COVID has really brought all these things to the forefront. I have a friend who owns a rental car company, a major one, and they were largely contactless. But because of COVID, they completely are now. So in their rental car, they've got branches all around New Zealand. You couldn't use a piece of paper now if you wanted to, because the crisis has really pushed that forward. So I agree. I think in hotels now's the time to be implementing these things, and we just need to get on with it because we need productivity. And the comments from Rob around some of those numbers are startling, Rob, and especially at a company like mine, which is, we struggle with productivity in New Zealand because our labour costs are high and they're ever growing, and we've got old inventory. So I'm really thankful for your comments, because it's given me the confidence now to go away. And I kind of like Daniel's operation, where he wakes up in the morning, he pushes a button, and then he doesn't have to do anything for the rest of the day. I reckon that works really well.
Well, that gets beautiful in the summer, but in the winter he just plays Batman all night.
What I'll do is I'll pop you an email afterwards, because we've built this model around the way that supermarkets track inventory and stock control and things like that. So I've actually taken Lidl, I'm sure you all know Lidl, the brand, the supermarket chain. We've taken their concept and looked at how do they do their individual pricing and individual control and specials for the items in their stores. What is perishable, what's not perishable, and we've looked at a restaurant model around restaurant yielding prices on that concept. So it also automatically links into your inventory, your stock control systems, your supply chain management, and then it all balances around, obviously, supplier costing. If you can get a supplier to give you cheaper information straight into your system, your menus can automatically update and create specials for you based on cost of goods, not the other way around. Because then, in essence, you're working bottom up and you can control your margins. And this might scare you guys, but the average food cost in South Africa is sitting at 50% across all hotels.
We had
so if we can the food cost by 20% where it should be, can you imagine the flow through we're going to create just by micro managing the data?
When we were at the Singapore Tourism Accelerator Program, we had 2 F&B startups. One was Eat Lab and the other one was Good for Food. I think they have now changed their name. And one of them does AI food tracking, and they had a course where they could go back to the supplier and said, the reason why our food costs went higher was because you gave us bad products. It wasn't something in this, because they kind of go like, there should only be a 10% wastage on a strawberry. But this time around, it was a 50% because of your because of the strawberries that you deliver to us. And the second company, they looked at the entire menu and said, you're having too many ingredients. If you swap 2 or 3 ingredients out with each other, you can actually create 5 or 6 more dishes. And they tried that out. And for example, their pasta dish was really, really favorable. And then they had the chicken wings. And when they combined, or the AI combined like a chicken combo slash pasta dish, it went through the roof and the food cost came right down, because it essentially said, get rid of those 5 menu items because those are the most expensive one. And now with your existing things, the AI found 10 different menu items that you can create in order to stock up your menu without any cost attached to it. And I found that fascinating, but I'm not in the F&B space, so that might actually be all around.